things that I want to take out of the relationship breakup is... Hello guys, welcome back to my channel if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new here. So this is a bit of a strange video. I did plan to do a bit of a hike and talk video with you, but I arrived at my destination and it's pouring with rain. You can probably hear like the pitter patter of the rain on the car roof. So we're just going to do this video in the car. Hopefully you don't mind. Bit of a change of scene, but you know, we have to work with what we've been given and you can't control Mother Nature. So let's see. I did want to really get my body moving today and do some walking and talking and get some fresh air and clear my head, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen now. I'll hopefully get out a bit later once I've recorded this video. It's just bringing the camera out in the rain and the microphone that I don't want to do. So let's see, I might include some shots throughout the video that I actually get when I make it outside. But anyway, I'm digressing. The purpose of this video was just to have a run through of how I'm doing now. And if you saw the first video on my channel, it was quite a raw video that documented how I was feeling about going through a breakup at the age of 39. I'd been with my ex-partner for 4 years and obviously it was very emotionally painful. I'm a couple of months on from releasing that video and even more months on since the breakup. So I just wanted to make this video to perhaps show and demonstrate to anyone that might be going through a similar stage in life that it is possible to come out the other side, mostly unscathed, and show that there is the potential for a very meaningful and fruitful life on the other side of a big breakup. So at the time of the breakup, I'd been with my partner for 4 years and we'd been living together for 2 years. And it was a very raw and emotional time for me. And I think that's the same with anyone that's going through a big breakup. You experience the grief of having to come to terms with the fact that you're no longer going to be with this person. The future that you imagined with this person is no longer relevant, and you kind of have to say goodbye to those dreams that you envisaged of having a life together. So it's extremely tough, very painful, and you know, you just never think that you're going to get out of the other side and feel normal again. I think also coupled with the fact that I lived with my ex for 3 months after we broke up whilst I was looking for a new apartment, and that kind of exacerbated the feeling of the despair and grief that I felt after the breakup, because you're still interacting with this person, you're still in very close proximity to them, but you have no relationship with them. So that really compounded the hurt and the pain and all the things that come with a relationship breakup, because even though you've separated, it's very hard if you don't have that physical separation to also process the mental separation as well. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, I often refer to 2025 being quite a tumultuous year. And it was in many respects. It was very up and down emotionally. But, you know, we're in 2026 now and it's great to be able to reflect. And it's not to say that I've come out of the other side completely, but I do feel like I've done a lot of healing and you know, emotional repair of myself. And I feel like that's really important to help me move on and be able to learn lessons from the relationship, because when you're going through the emotional and painful part, it's very hard to reflect and, you know, work out not where things went wrong, but you can kind of rationalize and review some of the not so great things about that relationship. I think it's just so important to have that level of self-reflection when you are kind of at the latter stage of your healing journey, just to learn lessons from that relationship, because I don't think any relationship, whether it's successful or if it doesn't work out, I still think there's lessons to be learned from any kind of relationship. And it's only in time when you've actually been through that healing process that you can actually reflect and learn from those lessons. And so hopefully the idea is that you learn from them and learn what to bring and what not to bring into future relationships. So I don't feel like past relationships have been a complete waste of time. I'm just mindful of the fact that they're all learnings, and learnings that I want to try and reflect on more and hopefully help me become a better person for another partner. So I feel like, with anything in life, it's all a learning journey, and whether we want to take those learnings and run with them, or if we just want to deny them or ignore them, it's up to us individually. But I do think that we need to do the work on ourselves that we need to, rather than just focusing on the other person and what they did wrong and what we can blame them for, because at the end of the day, we have no control over other people. We can only control our individual actions. So yes, it's been a very interesting time, I must say. Do you know, I've just noticed that I can't hear the rain anymore, and I think it may have stopped even just temporarily. So let's continue this conversation outdoors. Yay, I made it outside. Hopefully you can still hear me, and I'm not too crunchy from the sound of my rain jacket. But it's a little bit drippy, but not too bad. So I've put my visor on just to make sure I don't get any drips on my face, because that's never a good look. So to carry on the conversation, I just wanted to try and run through a few things that really helped me navigate this really difficult breakup at the end of my late 30s. And I think the main thing was just allowing myself to feel the emotions and not bottling those emotions up. I think it's so easy to just feel that you need to carry on and navigate life as a normal person when you're hurting and feeling terrible inside. So I didn't do that. I just let everything out when I needed to. I cried when I needed to, laughed when I needed to, and felt all the things, And I think it was just so liberating for me to feel confident enough to do that, because I think previously I would have just bottled everything up and pretended that I wasn't hurting and just gone about my normal life. But in this scenario, I was very open about what was happening. I was open about how I was feeling to those that I needed to be, and yes, I found it very liberating. So that really helped me navigate what I was going through at the time and feel a little less alone. Even though at the time I felt alone, I think it would have felt a lot worse if I'd just kept myself to myself. Another thing that I found really helpful and was quite pivotal in making sure I stayed grounded during this tumultuous time was just developing some very simple and gentle routines. So I would come out for walks like this one regularly throughout the week just to get out of the apartment. I'd make sure that I'd do my food shop on the same day after putting together a bit of a food plan for the week. So I had something to focus on and again to leave the apartment for, because like I said, I was living with my ex for 3 months after we broke up. So any opportunity to get out of the apartment was quite welcomed. And I also really got into reformer Pilates, and that's something that I actually continue to this day. And I did start that just as, something new to try, an opportunity to get out and about, meet people and exercise, because as we all know, exercise is such an important part of your health, regardless of whether you're going through a breakup or not. It's just a great way to detach from reality, because, well, I don't know about you, but I was very unfit at the time, and going to my Pilates classes just put me into another world, and it was actually a world of pain. Well, not pain, but, extremely hard work. So I had no choice but to think about what I was doing in the moment and be present to what I was feeling in that moment. And it definitely wasn't relationship troubles. So yeah, I feel like exercise, and specifically my Pilates classes, were just a great way to find some detachment from what was going on and find solace in exercise. So I definitely vote for that. Oh, there's a little wallaby. Oh my God, let me see if I can film him. Can you see him? Next to the post. He's just looked up. Now he's looking round. Oh my God. I've called him Fred. I've seen him before, but I haven't seen him for like a year. So I'm so happy he's come out to say hello. See if he jumps off as we approach. So cute. Bye. That was literally so cute. That's totally distracted me from the video now and absolutely made my weekend, because I haven't seen him for a whole year, and he's out in the rain, so sorry, I'm so happy to see little Fred. Okay, back to the task at hand. So another thing that really helped navigate the relationship breakup was just creating a sense of distance and physical boundaries, in the sense that once I had moved out and once there had been that physical separation, any contact that I had with my ex-partner was limited to practical things that needed to be sorted, which after 3 months there wasn't really much left to sort. There was no, meeting up for lunches or reaching out to see how each other was doing. And it sounds harsh, but I feel like the brain, because you've been in that relationship for so long, I feel like your whole nervous system and your brain and how you function is totally enmeshed with that person. So unless you have the physical detachment, and that means no contact, no communication, no checking in, no checking on the ex-partner's socials, unless you have that, it's going to be very difficult to actually come out through the other side of your healing journey. And it's not to say that it's impossible. I feel like it would just take that little bit longer. So that's what I'd recommend as well, just having that detachment from the person if that's possible for your situation. Another strategy that I would probably recommend, and that certainly helped me in navigating a breakup, was actually talking to people and getting support and reaching out. Now, this was something that I found quite difficult, being an introvert, because I am used to, and I prefer to be very self-reflective and deal with things internally on my own. But in this situation, I did actually find myself reaching out to multiple sources, including my therapist, family members and friends, and even colleagues at one point. So I think if you have people that mean well in your life and are able to provide you with the support that you need at this difficult time, then I would say take advantage of that, because it's really helpful. And even though, again, you still feel alone because these people that you're speaking to aren't going through the exact same situation, I think it just helps to unload and talk through things. And it's not an opportunity to bash the relationship or bash the ex-partner. It's just a way to relieve yourself emotionally. And I'm not saying that, you need to be emotional about things. It's just a simple way to let people know where you are at life at this stage, and obtain some understanding and some reassurance and just some comfort that, this is a normal thing to be going through. Literally everybody on the planet has gone through some kind of painful breakup. But at the time, it just feels like it's just you. Whether you're talking in a professional capacity, which I actually found really helpful, to a therapist, because I'm a very practical person and I love to understand why things are happening, the reasons behind things. And I love psychology and learning about our behaviours and how, past situations and scenarios have influenced our behaviour today. So that really interests me. And so I found great support in talking to a therapist about my relationship breakup and what I was going through and what I was feeling. But it doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be a friend or family member, just somebody that you trust and can offer you that level of support that you need at the time. And no doubt that at some stage in life, you probably do the same for them or have done in the past. And I think that's what You know, life is about supporting one another and getting us through tough times, because it's in our nature to want to help other people. I don't think I'd ever turn away anyone that approached me that was going through a tough time and was seeking out my help or reassurance that everything would be okay, because sometimes that's all you need to hear, isn't it? That it'll be fine. Things will work out in the end and you'll be fine and you'll come out the other side. So reach out and communicate with others, because we're human and that's what we were made to do and conditioned to do. Another thing that I found quite helpful was just coming to terms with the fact that this whole healing journey is never linear. Like, I would have days or even weeks where I was absolutely fine. I was feeling positive, back to my normal self again. And then I'd have like a couple of days that I would just crash, you know, not want to get out of bed, be reflecting on negative things, have constant negative thoughts running through my mind. And I just thought, where did this come from? I thought I was healing. I thought I was out through the other side. But I don't think getting over a breakup is like that. I think sometimes the reality of it all can just come back and hit you like a ton of bricks. So I think just accepting that and checking in with your mind, checking in with your body on a day-to-day basis to see how you're feeling, what you're thinking, journaling, being conscious of what you're grateful for in that day, but also conscious of any negative thoughts that you've had as well, because I think it's important that they're acknowledged and again not pushed down or ignored, because they will surface at some point and manifest themselves in another way. And I think it's also important not to lose hope when you do have those crash days after weeks of feeling positive, because they can easily just derail your progress if you take them to heart. But if you just realise and find solace in the fact that, you know, you will come out through the other side, and gradually the crash days will become more sporadic and the more positive, happier weeks will be more voluminous. So yeah, I think it's important to remember that not to lose hope when you feel like the negative thoughts are reoccurring again, when you thought you'd said goodbye to them permanently. Because I think the truth is, they never really go away. You just feel them differently to different extents. Well, that's the experience I'm having. Okay, I'm walking uphill now and slightly out of breath, so I might film again when we're on flatter ground, because I don't think the sound of me panting into the microphone is very appealing to anyone. So this is the rest of the hill that I've got to navigate. I've already come up from this direction, so I might talk about my last point before I navigate this hill, because I know I'm going to be even more out of breath by the time I get to the top. I think one of the important factors that helped me get through the breakup is the self-talk that I was giving to myself as well. And it's not something that I did very well at the beginning of the breakup. The self-talk that I spoke to myself was quite negative. It just wasn't very good for my mental well-being. And I know that it's probably easy to think that the self-talk that we give ourselves doesn't have much of an impact. You know, it's just our mental chatter that we have. But I think it's more important than what other people are saying to us to some extent, because those thoughts are constantly swirling around our head and reinforcing things that potentially aren't true. So I'd be very conscious of the self-talk that I was giving myself, and instead of putting myself down and thinking that, you know, I was a terrible person for being in this situation so late in life, I was trying to turn that around and reframe it and put a positive spin on it in any which way I could. Because even though it seems like our self-talk is, you know, very trivial, it's stuff that goes on in our head that we don't really have to think too much about, I think it has a major impact on how we show up and present ourselves, and definitely does have an impact on our healing journey. It's quite similar to a death by 1,000 cuts, that famous saying, that it might just be one little thought here and there, but if you accumulate those thoughts over an extensive period of time, it's enough to bring you down and get you into a place where you don't really deserve to be. So if there's any way to kind of try and reframe that and just be a bit gentler and softer in the way that you speak to yourself during these difficult times, then I think that will really help. Okay, so the rain has picked up a little bit, so I'm sheltering underneath these trees, but I don't know how effective they are, or will be if the rain gets any worse, but we'll see how we go for now. I'm feeling a little bit wet, but not the best day to be wearing a white t-shirt, that's for sure. But I had to take my jacket off because it's so hot and humid. But I think one of the last things that I want to talk about was things that surprised me going through the breakup and just about coming out the other side. And I think the main thing was just realizing how resilient we are as human beings to cope with emotional pain and all the thoughts and feelings that come about and arise during a breakup. And especially at this time of life as well, in your late 30s, it's so hard when, you're looking around and trying not to compare yourself to other people's life stages. But, at this stage, I personally thought I would have been married and had some semblance of a family. And I feel like this breakup was a lot tougher than ones that I'd been through before, because it's almost as if, in my mind, this was like the last chance to procure those kind of things that a lot of us look for in later life. So yeah, I think the emotional pain around that just felt a lot stronger, and yeah, that's why it felt a lot more difficult. But the resilience that we have and that I had to get through and realize that there's other ways to live life, and when you're not comparing yourself to others, you just see so much more opportunity for an alternative. And that's not to say that I've given up on finding a life partner or starting a family, but I think you have to just be more open to more non-conventional ways of sourcing that, and also being comfortable and accepting that that might not happen and there's another alternative for you. So, resilience and being open to different opportunities and different routes and directions for my life to go has really surprised me, because I've been very open to lots of different things that I probably wouldn't have seen if I was still in the relationship that I was in. So that kind of surprised me a little bit. I'm also quite surprised at how quickly I was able to deal with the identity shift. And admittedly, at the time when I was a single person again and going through the breakup, I did have a tough time kind of identifying with other couples. And I'd be walking along in a park and I'd see a couple holding hands and think that was me in the past. And that really used to bring on a lot of painful thoughts and memories. And at one point I would really get quite emotional thinking those thoughts. But I think as time went on and the healing progressed, I'm now embracing this new single era, and I'm actually quite enjoying it and feeling quite free from it. There's no requirement to compromise or have to consider another person. And whilst I'm definitely open to doing that, I think it's also equally important to acknowledge the other side of that and take advantage when that is your situation. I can travel when I want, I don't have to answer to anybody, I don't have to check in with anyone. And yeah, I've really enjoyed that aspect of things, and I've definitely loved having an apartment to myself that I can make my own and not have to worry about sharing meals, even though it sounds really trivial and I'm only shopping for one person. And I think it's just really small things like that that make you appreciate being in your single era, regardless of how long it goes on for. I've really enjoyed reconnecting with myself and finding joy in discovering more about me, because, even though I am approaching 40, I've got so much to learn about myself and how I fit in the world and how I connect with people in the world, that it's going to be a forever journey. So I'm so happy to be in the middle of that journey, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. So yeah, learning to reconnect with myself has been one major advantage of being single again that I didn't realise at the time going through the breakup would have such a prominent place in my life. So quite unexpected, but unexpected in a good way. I think another benefit that has come out the back of me going through this very difficult breakup is being more intentional with my romantic relationships and making sure that there's some alignment there in terms of our values and morals and the goals that we're striving for in life, because that's probably something, admittedly, that I've not been very cognizant of in the past. And you know, it's so easy to overlook when you get caught up in a relationship and, you know, the love hormones start flowing. And then when you realise there are red flags or issues, you just try your best to kind of circumnavigate those. But you're never going to be able to if there's core values and goals that aren't in alignment. So I think I'm a lot more aware of that going forward for romantic relationships. And yeah, I'm going to do my best to do the inner work on myself to kind of understand those a little bit more, and hopefully meet someone that has done the same work on themselves and we are in alignment. So I think that's a huge priority for me, and definitely something that has come out the back of this breakup and been a good learning point for me. You know, I'm just grateful that I was able to navigate the breakup in a relatively healthy and timely way. And it's not to say there's any rush in terms of healing or whatever healing journey that you're going through, but I do feel like there's been progress in terms of my journey. And you know, they say time is a healer. I think that's absolutely true, and obviously it helps to do the work on yourself as well and do what you need to do to process emotions and thoughts. But time is absolutely a healer, and I'm just grateful that I had the experience of the breakup and the relationship and all the parts in between. And I think it's all part and parcel of the rich tapestry of life. You have to go through the tough times to really appreciate the good times, and that's just how it is. And for me, part of 2025, or most of 2025, was one of those difficult times, but definitely punctuated with moments of joy. So I'm really grateful and happy for the experience. And that's not to say I'd like to repeat it anytime soon, but you know, we are the masters of our own destiny ultimately. So whatever happens, happens, but I'm trying to steer it away from any more negative romantic experiences. But who knows? I could be doing another video on the same topic next year. And I just want to say, if going through a major breakup a bit later on in life is something that you're also trying to navigate, then just know that there's no rush. There's absolutely no rush to come out the other side. As long as you're doing the work that you're needing to do and you're healthy and finding joy in some of the smaller moments, then you can't really go wrong. And I think time is an absolute healer, and will work with you to try and heal that pain as best as possible. So don't give up hope. Definitely don't give up hope. Keep doing things that make you happy. And when you do have those negative thoughts or negative self-talk, just notice that. And even in the noticing, you'll find that it alleviates the feeling and the emotion behind it a little bit. And don't forget exercise, because that's so important. Even if it's just a 10-minute walk every day, just making sure you're getting out, getting some sun on your face, or depending on where you are in the world, just fresh air, because there is no sun. I'm in the southern hemisphere, so we get sun a lot at the moment, but I know back in my home country in the UK and in the northern hemisphere, you'll be lucky if you get any sun at this time of year. So do what you can. Thank you so much, if you're still watching, for listening to my little ramble in the rain. The sun's actually coming out a little bit now, so that's good. Just as I'm wrapping up the video, there's no more rain and sunshine. Sod's law, isn't it? But again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video. Bye. If you saw my previous gold video,
start recording emergency video.
That was a couple of months. Oh my god, it's starting to pour with rain.